work? Okay, I think we're now live. Good morning, guys. This is Bernard Nomberg, as always, Nomberg Law Live on Tuesday mornings. And I've got my friends Lisa and Mitch from Southern California out there. Thank you guys for getting up, and good morning.
Our pleasure. It's great to see you.
Good morning, Bernard. It's good to see you. Thanks for having us on. It's good to see you too, so early in the morning.
Well, for those of you
things are going to get awkward.
Yeah, I think they have standards here on Facebook we need to adhere to. For those of you who don't know who my guests are today, Lisa Wilson and Mitch Jackson are the dynamic duo of Jackson and Wilson in Southern California. They're trial lawyers, but there's so much more. And we're not going to talk a lot about the law today, but what we are going to talk about is how this duo, this pair, this married couple have made it work for over 30 years in marriage, as well as in being law partners for all these years. And I don't think we have any sudden announcements that we're going to make today, but I'm really hoping you guys will share some of your secret sauce and how you've made it work all these years. But for those of you who don't know Lisa, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at the firm.
Well, let's see. Mostly trial work. Mitch and I, as you know, our emphasis is on catastrophic injury cases. I do handle some cases with coverage issues and insurance bad faith. And Mitch and I think, would prefer to spend all of our time in court if we could, but unfortunately the paperwork creeps in before you can get there. So it's been a busy and fun practice, and I love what we do for a living.
Excellent. Well, it certainly shows in the type of work that you guys do. We'll get to you in a minute, Mitch. Just give me a second. We'll eventually get to you.
No problem.
I'll
be back in about 35 minutes.
That'll work. No, for you guys who don't know Mitch is also a trial lawyer. He was, tell me if I have this right, 2009 Southern or Trial Lawyer of the Year in California. It's such an unbelievable honor, but much more so than that, not just being a lawyer. The way I came to meet Mitch and Lisa over the years is through online and through Mitch's group, the Legal Minds. We also are members of Max Law with the guys out of St. Louis, and I've had the pleasure of also being in person with them at the conferences in June, which I always look forward to. But one of the things I wanted to say as a further introduction of what Mitch does is he teaches not just lawyers but professionals about how to do things right on social media, how to show who you are and your why. And I'm not trying to steal any of your thunder, but Mitch, I want to just, what's your philosophy, because you have such large followings on social media? What is your approach that makes it so unique? Why do people want to engage with you?
Well, that's a good question. I just do whatever Lisa tells me to do, Bernard, okay, which is part of the foundation of this entire show.
That's
right. It's all about from day one, before the internet, before social media. Once I figured out just to be myself, just to show my human side, to do what I like to do, to attend the events that I enjoy attending, and to surround myself with people who have similar likes, similar interests, similar values. The network started to grow and things started to click. And then what we did is, once social media rolled out, we took that philosophy online, met wonderful people like you. And as you well know, that's the key to social. It's about being real, genuine, and providing helpful and useful content to the audience.
And we're going to get right back to that, but we've got a whole bunch of fans of Lisa who are watching us live, so I got to give them some shout outs. Christopher Levinson, Sue Chef, Brad Friedman, Lynn Abate Johnson, Mo, our buddy in Huntsville, AJ Richmond, Tamara and Julian, and I'm sure there'll be others who will roll who just want to talk with Lisa and see how she's doing and hear more from her. But no, I kid, of course. And good morning, Margaret, down in South Alabama. Mitch, I want to go back to what you were just saying. It's very difficult, and Lisa, I want to hear from you on this too. It's very difficult for professionals, in my opinion, and many people have echoed this as well. It's not just coming from me. You go to school for all these years, you have your training, you get book smart, and then you have mentors you learn from as you're a young attorney or a young doctor, whatever your profession is. Why do I want to get on social media and give away all my knowledge for free? when everything is out there, why do I want to do that? Because that, for me, was a very hard thing to overcome. And now I see such the benefits of it by just being who I am on social. But how is it that you take a person you want to in your mind, I want to charge for the professional advice that I'm giving, but yet part of or most of what we're learning in legal minds is you need to be a giver. You need to show who you are. What's the balance? There's a balance. How do you get past that?
Well, there is a balance, and as Bob Berg talks about, it's all about being a go-giver from the heart and being genuine when you're doing so. And I think once lawyers build and understand and develop that abundance mentality where it's all about, there's plenty of business for everyone. There are more consumers out there that need legal help than we'll ever be able to cross paths with. And just by giving and giving and giving will result in more business for the firm, more referral relationships, and end of year profits for the firm. So for me, it's just a more human way to build relationships, to increase referrals and increase firm profits at the end of the year. But once you figure it out, the abundance of giving, it starts to become fun, right? I remember we talked about that.
Bernard, I struggled with that as well when Mitch first started. He was involved in social media back before anyone was really looking at it or even considering it as attorneys. And once I watched how it progressed in the work that he was doing, I recognized it for me personally. I saw it as the same way you and I or any lawyer would go to a neighborhood party or with friends at Rotary, or we're around family and people ask us for legal advice. And I don't think there's a single attorney I've ever met who hasn't been in that situation where they're giving legal advice for free and you don't think anything of it. And what I've recognized watching Mitch get so active in social media is that social media is just a bigger version of that same thing. You become acquainted with people online, you become friends, and the more helpful you are to your community, now it's much broader, of course, the more success you have. People hire you because they've gotten to know you.
Well, it really, the example that you both lead for us, for those of us who are connected with you through Legal Minds or connected on socially or offline in person, are such great examples, and I applaud you both. But now I'm going to quit giving you compliments because now we need some real answers. Lisa, how did you meet this fella? When did you guys first meet?
Well, you'll like this story, Bernard. We met in law school, and I don't know about for you, but we had seating charts so the professors could call on you. And I came into the class a couple weeks late. I had to petition to get in, and I sat in the very back row to be away from everybody and not take anybody's seat. And by the time the classroom was full, I realized there were 2 empty rows in front of me. So that was a little embarrassing, but I didn't want to move. And the professor passed around the seating chart, and when it got to Mitch, he wrote hi with a smiley face in the box where I had to sign. So when it came back to me, he turned around, was chuckling, thought it was funny, and I was embarrassed, just signed my name and passed it forward. And partway through the class, the professor said, "Who shall I call on?" And he looked up and said, "How about the young lady who wrote hi to me on the roll sheet?" And I almost fell out of the chair, and everybody was looking at me like, of course, I was doing something inappropriate. That was really fun. And that's how we met. We walked outside in the hallway, and Mitch was laughing and said, "Wasn't that funny?" And I said, "No, not at all," and left. And it took a while before we talked again. But it was cool.
Smooth.
I was just being social. I was just building relationships, Bernard.
I suspect that same interaction has been going on ever since.
Yes, you would be correct.
Well, let's talk. You guys, you've been married for more than 30 years. You've been business partners for more than 30 years, and clearly you're making it work. And I know that not everything is roses every day. You've got 2 successful children. AJ is now, she passed the bar. Has she started the job, or is she back from her travels?
She's working at her firm at Shepherd Mullen up in Century City, but their bar results come out Friday.
Oh boy. Okay, pins and needles. But I have no doubt that she will have passed with flying colors. And
Thank you. We're
you're
excited.
living the dream at Southern Cal. Is he a second year student? I forget what year he's in.
Yes, he just started his sophomore year at USC, and he is having a great time.
Well, I know
Sometimes too much fun.
you guys are empty nesters like I am, but you never stop being parents and worrying and things. But I know you take comfort in what the foundations you've built for both of them, which they have seen in the two of y'all. But now I want to hear about those struggles, the early years, if there were struggles, how you guys, as not only a married couple, but business partners, how do you deal with those things? Not every day is the greatest day of your life, but how do y'all work through those issues?
Well, we started off sharing office space with some friends of ours, and we had one desk where Lisa sat on one side of the desk, I sat on the other, and we stared at each other. Okay, so when we started off, we were really watching our pennies, trying to make smart decisions, but we were around each other 24/7, and it worked.
Yes.
Until we had a disagreement, and then it didn't work. In other words, when you get up in the morning and you disagree over who's going to make the coffee, and then you see each other an hour later at the office, it can be a long day. So I think as Lisa and I, at least as I became more mature, as I grew up, understood the roles that we would each be doing in and out of the office, for me, the light bulb went on, and I realized, okay, it's a give and take type of relationship, like any type of relationship. And it's worked really well for us. I mean, from trying cases together to bouncing legal strategy off of each other. We handle our own case loads most of the time. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the very first jury trial we had,
We tried together.
we tried together. And it was probably
Wow.
6 months after we came together as a law firm, which was right after we got married, and had some fun in trial together.
Right. It was, I mean, for me, Bernard, I started off doing defense work with a big firm. So when I came into practice with Mitch, I was actually thinking of leaving, and I wanted to start my own office. And when I came home and talked to him about it, he said, well, I'm really swamped. What do you think about trying working together? And I was thinking, oh, I don't know about that.
Because our mom and dad.
Yeah, both of our parents, I mean, we're both raised in families where our parents ran a business together. So that wasn't out of the ordinary for us to even consider it. But we're both pretty stubborn, so I don't think either one of us was entirely convinced it would work. But it was actually much easier, I think, than most people think it is, because you go from having your attention drawn away from your family to having everything together directed in the same way. I mean, we're both working. If you're working late, the other spouse, of course, understands you're both working for your own family. So in a lot of ways, it was easier. For the last probably 20, after the first year, really, we've always had separate offices, and ironically and by coincidence, we've always been at opposite ends of our offices.
I was just getting ready to ask.
Days where you leave for work, and it's not like when couples get in an argument and they say, well, I have to leave for work, and they go to work and don't see each other. We're like, I have to go to work, and then we see each other 10 minutes later. So
But-
you get over things more quickly, because otherwise it's a very long day.
But a little technique Lisa's picked up when that does happen. She'll usually roll into my office about noon,
Oh,
and then invite me out to lunch and maybe an
Sure.
early movie. And
Yeah, right,
so she's
right.
figured it out.
yeah.
There was a seed planted, as in all of our relationships, early on when we met with Father Darrell.
Yes.
And it was pre-marriage counseling.
Premarital counseling.
Mandatory counseling, which I didn't think we needed, but Lisa told me it would be a good idea. And he shared a couple of our personality traits.
Yes. Well, they put us through psychological profile testing. And when we came in to meet with him, he was shaking his head no 2 weeks before our wedding. And I was in a panic, like, don't shake your head no, what's wrong? And he said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never seen anything like it. And then he looked at me and said that I was in the 98th percentile of dominating personalities. And Mitch started laughing and thought it was really funny. And then he said, don't laugh, Mitch. You're in the 99th. You guys will either be very passionate or you'll kill each other, but there won't be anything in between. He was dead right. He was absolutely
Clearly you've found the secret. You found what works for you guys. As you both know, I've been practicing with my youngest brother David for more than 15 years, and most days Mom doesn't have to come to the office to break up fights anymore. But what we also did was we moved our offices apart, because I tend to be a lot louder even though my door is shut, I'm on the speakerphone. He's quieter. But before,
Yes.
in our old office, our walls, we had an adjacent wall. So I would always hear this loud banging when I was a little too loud for David. So I'm sure, just like with your offices, split, and I suspect that Brad Friedman's probably been in your kitchenette or kitchen break area at the office, because he says, just do what Lisa tells me to do, love Mitch. So I wonder if that's a sign on the wall, or should be a sign on the wall in the
Actually, I had it
building.
tattooed on him, Bernard.
Nice.
Tattoos are more permanent.
Yeah, actually, Bernard, what it is when we got married, I remember she told me that I could make all the important decisions. Okay. We just haven't had any in 31 years. So that's the deal right there.
I hear you.
It,
Lynn asks, how do you guys choose clients for each of you to serve specifically or individually? If you have your own caseloads, how do you guys talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think that's one of the things that for us with our personalities, what has worked is we are very independent in our selection of clients. And that was kind of just a natural evolution. We don't manage each other's cases. When we have concerns about something, we'll talk to each other, whether it's, taking a case that's going to have a huge cost advance, we'll sit down and have a conversation about what we want to do or what we're comfortable with. But beyond that, for the most part, we each field our own clients. We meet with our own clients. So frequently we'll have clients that the other doesn't know or has never met, even when they've been in the office. I think that having independence within our practice is one of the things that has made it work for us, just because of our personalities. So I think it would be different depending upon any other couple or siblings anyway, depending on what your personal relationship is with the person you're working with.
The necessity to have a group decision, and that's something we don't do now with most of our cases. We decide what we each want to take. Does go back to an early foundation, an early relationship. So when we were starting and the cases were coming in, we did brainstorm. Do we want to take a family law case? Do we want to branch out into bankruptcy, hourly or flat fee cases? We talked a lot more about it back in the first 4 or 5 years of practicing together. But then once we kind of fine-tuned or tuned in on what we wanted to do, we loosened up on the reins on each other and trusted each other to evaluate and take the right cases, which also took a little bit of stress off of each one of us because we were more efficient. We didn't have to brainstorm every single decision. And so it allows you to just kind of run with it a little bit.
But certainly,
Yeah, for
with
the
all
most
your
part,
experience, I was
Yeah,
going to
for the
say, with
most
your,
part. Sorry,
go ahead,
Bernard,
Lisa.
go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, for the most part, we are very independent in our handling of files. I would say 98% of what we're doing is independent, and then we consult with each other. It's one of the benefits of being married and working together is when you're concerned about a case at home, it's obviously you have a built-in person to bounce things off of. You can kind of run scenarios that help you when you're preparing for trial. It's actually been a really positive thing
I'm glad.
for practicing law and for being married.
And understanding the stress level.
Right.
Like, I'm glad Lisa brought that up for partners out there, even if you're just business partners. There's something about, and I learned this, stop talking and just listen and understand somebody else is in the middle of trial. He or she's stressed out. Your job's not to fix it. Your job's to listen. And I'm still learning that, and Lisa is too, because we have similar personalities. But that's another big advantage to, either living with your partner, or being married to your partner, or having a close partnership relationship in practice. You can be there for each other, and that really does help, especially in a profession that normally has a lot of stress associated with it.
Well, I was going to say, I can relate to a certain extent with my brother that we, in our first years of being together, really consulted with each other. Do we want to take this case? But now that we both have a lot of years under our belts, we have our own separate caseloads. It's the same here. Let's talk about when you leave the office. What part of your work comes home with you? How do you decide, no, we're not dealing with work at a certain point? Where's that division of, you're always going to be married to each other, your business partners as well. How do you guys divide that, or do you? Does it just drop into conversation at sitting at the dinner table or wherever when you're running errands? Talk to us a little bit how do you deal with that?
The famous Jackson dinner table conversation, especially when the kids are home. Yeah, we can't bring that up, but it's dynamic, it's entertaining and engaging. We're pretty good about shutting down when we come home most of the time. It's a 9 to 5 type of gig for us. However, big hearings, trials, something unusual happening, one of us will put in the time on the file at night if it needs to be. It's part of being an entrepreneur and owning your own business. You got to be able to put in the work.
And we do bring stuff home. I think it's like you and your brother too. I'm sure you and David have times where you start to talk about a case and then you recognize the other person really isn't interested in hearing about it in that moment, and you just adjust. It's everything in the family. And with 2 kids, they've grown up in our business also. And now with AJ about to be licensed as a lawyer, they've come to experience all of that too. And it's fun to watch them take that into their personal lives in school and apply things that work for lawyers and ways of listening or reasoning in their personal lives and growing up and in their schoolwork. So it's been kind of fun. But there are times where it's a lot at home where you're thinking, the other person's talking and in your head you're thinking, oh Lord, just leave me alone for 5 minutes. I want to have a break. Most of the time we just voice it and then the other person says, okay. But a lot of times it's just, you're just listening so that somebody can get it off their chest. They need to kind of think it through out loud. So that's a large percentage of what's going on too. And that's not really a big deal for either one of us.
There's a new component, Bernard, in everything we're talking about, and it's social media and digital. Like over the last 10 years, it's almost like opening up a new door. It's an outlet when you get stressed. It's a new way to build relationships here at home in the evening or earlier in the morning without having to travel to bar association meetings. It's a new way to market and build the practice. And I think the social media component has actually made the practice of law in our relationship new, interesting, different opportunities. The 3 of us would not have met if it wasn't for social media. And this is fun. I love wouldn't all of you love to see Lisa more on video and live video? Yes, see, everyone's saying yes, okay? And so for me, there's some new opportunities to get this one more involved on the digital platforms, and that's exciting for me. So,
tell me if you guys can relate to this. Friday nights are my favorite time of the week because our family all comes together for dinner, and it's just our way of unwinding from the week and just sharing about your week. And I'm looking forward to the weekend, and it's a real chill out session, and I crave those Friday nights. Well, when my children, who are older than my brother's children, we'd all be at the table. When David and I would start talking shop, immediately the kids, the groans, the leave the table, those kind of we don't want to hear it stories. So we learned many years ago, if we're going to talk about work, we're going to do it before we get to dinner on Friday night. We leave all of that alone, at least for that couple of hours time period. Doesn't mean I'm not thinking about something, of course, or I may not talk, I'll talk to David at the end of the evening, but that is such a special time about being around the table that we just learned very early on. We don't need to add the stress to everybody else that we're feeling. So I'm sure at some level, maybe you guys have dealt with that from time to time when the kids were young.
I think it's like anything else in our lives beyond practicing law, is that you learn to find what works for you, and it really doesn't necessarily, you can get advice from other people or hear what works for them, but for the most part, what works for you is what you go with. Like, don't be pressured into doing things that other people think you should do. Just work with whatever seems to take place with your family that everybody's comfortable with. So ours ebbs and flows. We've certainly had plenty of those moments you're speaking of where our kids were rolling their eyes or, wanting to be excused and go off to do something besides listen to us talk about work. And then as they get older, they become a little more interested, or they give us their opinions. We've gotten advice that's actually been helpful from both of them about work and actual cases. just, from people who are sitting there and who don't have a background in it. It's always kind of nice because it makes you think of your jurors when somebody pipes up and says something. You think, oh, that's actually a
Whole
very good
different,
point.
yeah, it's a whole different perspective.
Yes.
And guys, for those of you just joining us or may watch us later on, I've got my friends, attorneys, a dynamic duo, married couple, Lisa Wilson and Mitch Jackson from Southern California, where on
Hi,
their
guys.
very website, it says, we treat our clients like family. There's nothing more important than family. And that just echoes what this conversation is all about. And I think it's just so important for as busy as professionals can be. And I want to welcome Nick and a whole host of other folks on here who just joined us. Um, there is nothing more important than family. It's right. And there's nothing more important than having that work-life balance. And that's where I want to head next for a few minutes. And time is just flying by, and we're getting closer to the end of our conversation, which makes me a little sad. But talk about that. Lisa, I want to hear from you first. Talk about the work-life balance. How do you get away from the office? Do you have things that you enjoy doing that have nothing to do with work, have maybe nothing to do with Mitch? It's just stuff that allows you to relax, to get away.
We each have lots of those, Bernard. Mitch and I actually, ironically, something we do together as well as being married and practicing laws. We've both been in Rotary together for 30 years. And Rotary is a very busy outside interest for both of us. We both enjoy community service. But even in Rotary, we each have our independent things that we do. I've always been very active in the schools in our community, from the elementary, middle schools, high school, and the kids going to the community college. Mitch has his special interest in things he works with, or he'll be handling social media things for Rotary and being helpful in that way. And that's a really nice break. I think anytime you walk outside of your own needs and have the opportunity to serve in your community, that's a big stress reliever. You stop thinking about, you stop feeling sorry for yourself if you're working hard and something's going on that's stressing you out when you see someone who's really in need of help and you're able to join. And then, of course, the people in Rotary, who would be better than people who are out there looking for service and a way to help their community. So that's been a real fun time for us. You guys see Mitch, he loves to run. So he likes being out at the beach. We both have a lot of our own separate friends, as well as friends that we have as a married couple, which is nice.
I don't have any friends.
We have family nearby. My parents actually live around the corner. One of the benefits we have when you talk about married couples working together, we had a huge benefit of not having to worry about childcare. For a lot of working parents, that's a terrifying thought, to hire somebody to help you with childcare while you're working. But for us, we had my parents. So we've been very fortunate, and we recognize that's allowed us to relax and expand our practice and focus on work when we needed to. But I think we have a lot of activities we enjoy, from bike riding, snow skiing, water skiing, all sorts of things. And then we both love to travel. So we do a lot of travel as a family, which has been really, I think, one of my favorite things to do with our family.
Yeah,
It really is. It's so important to get out of the office. It's so important to do those things. And Mitch, I know we see videos of you down at the beach or running along with sometimes you'll have out the drone, or you'll have your GoPro or stand-up paddleboard. I mean, there's so many great things you still enjoy doing. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, as you do. I mean, you're out on the trails, right? It's therapy, and it helps release stress. And by the way, congrats to you and David on the super lawyer
Yes,
acknowledgement.
congratulations.
That's really, really cool. So congratulations to you.
Well deserved.
But it's because you're balancing your profession and your personal life, and you're taking care of your health, which is something that I know you really focus on, being an ex-athlete. All of these things come together, and I think maybe the takeaway from Lisa and I to anyone new starting a practice or starting a practice together is, do try to make time and focus on your practice, make time for building out your personal life or lives, incorporate hobbies and activities into what you do every day so that you don't get stressed out, so that you have a work-life balance. And it's not easy to do. We've pulled some all-nighters together on some post-trial, pre-appeal arguments and writs where we were up all night at the office working on this stuff. You got to do what you got to do to get the job done. But that's the exception and not the norm. And the norm is a very normal, balanced life.
Well, I mean, just like you, Bernard, I don't think either one of us has ever missed a game or any sporting event for our kids.
Yeah.
And that is a blessing, being self-employed, being able to walk away from work in the middle of an afternoon and go watch your kids play, or spending time at an event that they're involved with, anything beyond sports. It's just been, to me, that's the best thing about practicing private practice and practicing together, is I don't have to explain to anybody where I'm going or why I'm doing it. We're both on the same page, and that makes life a whole lot easier from the family front, which is a big stress reliever.
And not just being there, but also being mentally present. It's
Yes.
You see way too many family members or people who just have their phone in their hands the whole time. Now, it may be you may be recording, but like I was at, this is completely off topic, but it's just still burning me up. We were at the Georgia football game this weekend, and there was a fellow right in front of me. He was probably 15 years younger, standing up the entire time on his phone in a group text, was not watching the game unless he heard the crowd say something, roar. So finally, the three different people sitting in my row each said something to the guy. So in defiance, he just stood there the whole time and kept thumbing and talking, into his text. The long and the short of it is karma, it caught up with him. I never wished him ill will, but he slipped, he fell, and he ended up having to leave because he hit his cheek. Anyway, long story short, it's about being present. And I know you guys, as busy as everyone is and as tied into social as Mitch is, I know that when you're at those events, when you're at things with family, you're seeing the kids play whatever the games or sports, you're present, you're there. And that means so much to the kids, and they see that. Instead of seeing, your forehead and your thumbs, they see your face, whether it's smiling or not so happy about something that may have just taken place.
They enjoy having us there until we're too loud, Bernard.
I've got those too. Well, guys, I've got a couple other folks I want to give a shout out. We're getting close to the end of our conversation. Carol Williams, all kind of great comments in here. Barb Tomlin, compliment for you, Lisa. Alicia Keith, here's a question. Has there ever been a time where Mitch has had to fill in for Lisa or vice versa in cases? Certainly that's happened.
Hundreds of times, yes. That is very common for us. Something comes up in anything, whether somebody's sick or a family issue or something related to work. We're very fluid in the way we handle our files, and if something comes up, neither one of us has ever had a problem stepping in and handling it. And for the most part, at some point during the process of handling files, each of us will meet the other person's clients, so it's usually a very simple solution. And when it doesn't, it's always fun to have people talk to us later, our clients talk to us later about enjoying meeting our spouse while working on the case on something. So yes, Alicia, we do that a ton.
And so let's also be clear. All of Lisa's clients love Lisa. All of my clients love Lisa.
Oh,
No, but it's true. And then with me, I'm working on my personality and improving it. But the point is, bringing her into any of my files is always a good thing. And I think, back when we had kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we had kids and they were young and you were balancing all of that, that's when we did that a lot more.
Well, and I'm sure Alicia recognized it. I mean, when you have, Mitch and I obviously do the same thing for a living, and the schools will have both of our information, but when Garrett falls down and cracks his head on a scooter, I'm the one who gets the phone call. It's kind of just built into the system. Whatever's going on, they always call mom first. And as a consequence, that's kind of, stayed in our balance of work too, because I'm the one who usually has to pack up and take off. Mitch always offers, but for the most part, I'm usually the one who isn't going to let him leave because I want to go and make sure that everything's okay. And we do have those tug of wars where both of us want to be there, but one of us has to stay and cover stuff at the office, and the other one has to go take care of what's ever going on with the kids. So.
But did Mitch try to throw in your face from his motocross days, all those crashes he could relate to Garrett's head injury that he needed to, I've been there, I've got this.
Bernard,
What practice?
we both have that in our. I would love to say that that's exclusive to Mitch, but I was active in sports as a kid, and I could probably match him injury for injury. So we would battle for days if that were the case. We both would have to give in because both of us did the same silly stuff that our kids are doing. So we're kind of both well versed on those issues.
Well, rather than digging further into that, I'm going to leave that alone for now. But guys, I want to thank you both for giving so much of your time here this morning and having this great conversation with me. I know we could talk for a long time, and we'll continue this offline in person hopefully soon. I want to put you both on the spot. I want to ask Lisa first, of course. Share. You've gone through this for 3 decades now with the guy sitting next to you. I know that every marriage is different, every law partnership is different, but share just a little bit of your philosophy about how you make it work.
Let's see. I would say the biggest thing is you have to have a level of independence and trust with your partner and your spouse. There are times where we'll discuss something that's going on or on one of our cases, and at some point, one of us has to make the call. And for us, it's always been, we made a decision early on, or it just kind of evolved that it's your file, so ultimately the decision is yours. And I think that eliminates a lot of strife and a lot of battles because we started that way and we've kept it that way for 30 years. So we may not always agree on something that's going to be done on either one of our files, but we both recognize that at the end of the day that the attorney who's handling it is the one who has the final call. And we live with that however it plays out. There can be no recriminations later. It's whatever is done, we did as a team, and that's the way it stays. And I think that's, for us, is what has made it work.
Well said. Thank you. I would expect nothing less from you. Thank you, Lisa. Mitch,
Thank you.
what about from your standpoint? How do you make it work?
So I had the advantage of listening to Lisa, but I'll say focusing in on the love and situational awareness and understanding and learning how to balance and keep work at work. And when we come home, try to reset and be a husband and a father, a good neighbor, a good family man when I'm here at the house. That's why you haven't seen me do a lot of late night live streamings like I used to back in the day. We try to balance all of that out and also really remember for everybody out there, put your family first, put your health first, and then and only then make your profession, your occupation a priority. I think if you're healthy, if you take care of your family and then focus on your occupation and those in that order, good things will happen. But it took me a while to figure that out. It probably took me 5 to 10 years of practicing law, working with Lisa, being reminded of where I am and what's going on to really have that come full circle. And we still work on it every week.
And that applies to both of us.
Yeah.
Recognizing that family comes first, taking care of yourself first. And sometimes the priorities get skewed and one of the two of us will track each other back, or you figure it out yourself. When you get sick, you recognize you just have to stop and take care of family first. And I have no complaints. It was the best decision I ever made was marrying him, and the second was working with him. So I'm happy and know I'm fortunate to be in the situation I am.
And Mitch, we have it on tape now.
I would like a copy of that, Bernard. I'll play it probably once a week.
Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. I cherish you both as my friends. I look forward to each time I get to interact with you guys, and I really appreciate your candidness and sharing with your audiences here today. So thank you.
We feel the same way about you, Bernard. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. I'll second that. Thanks, Bernard. Appreciate it, buddy.
Well, guys, this will conclude our conversation for today for another episode of Nomberg Law Live, as we do each Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central and a very early 8 a.m. Pacific for Lisa and Mitch this morning. But that'll do us for today. We'll catch you again next Tuesday and hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Take care.
Make it a masterpiece. Bye-bye, everybody.